Okay, guys, so this lesson is on 1.6, so it's all about angles. So let's dive right in. Okay, so an angle is defined as two rays with the same endpoint, and that endpoint is the vertex of the angle. So we can name angles in a couple different ways. So we can use just a number if they put just a number inside like that. And that's not the same thing as if they put the degrees, the angle measure in there. Okay, it doesn't have a degree sign, so it's a name. We can use just the vertex letter, whether they only give us that or if they give us all the letters, it'd still be angle B, okay? Or we can use the three letters from points on there. So ABC, or you can do it backwards in CBA. The only thing you can't do is jump ACB. The vertex point has to be in the middle. So think of it as like, how would you like trace it? And then that's the order, okay? So ABC or CBA. So we have different types of angles, and I'm sure we already know these. So just draw some example pictures in there. So acute is between 0 and 90, right? It's exactly 90. Obtuse is between 90 and 180, and straight is exactly 180. Okay. Okay. So interior and exterior. I wanted to highlight those, but I couldn't find my highlighters. So it's interior of an angle is the part on the inside, so the pink part. So it contains all the points between or inside the angle. And the exterior is that part on the outside where it contains all the points on the outside of the angle. And the congruent angles is kind of just like what we did with congruent segments. Okay, so if we're talking about their numbers, we use the equal sign, and if we're talking about the shapes themselves, we use the congruent symbol. Okay, so if we're saying that these two angles have the same shape in size, okay, we would say angle A is congruent to angle B. If we're talking about how much they equal, we put an M in front of it, and that stands for measure. So the measure of angle A is 42 degrees. The measure of angle B equals 42 degrees. Or the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle B, which is kind of the same idea here, but we're saying that their numbers are the same. Okay? So let's take a look on the inside. So over here, we're just practicing what we just learned. Okay, so if we have to name the angles that are congruent, so we can use those congruency symbols. Okay, so that's how they work for an angle. They have an arc. Okay, sometimes if there's more than one angle pair that's congruent in a picture, they can add arcs. So if they have two arcs, they're congruent, or if they had three arcs, they'd be congruent to each other. Okay, so the names of those angles are angle A, E, B is congruent to angle. So A, E, B is congruent to angle C, E, D. Very good. So 4 ways to name this angle. So real quick, try it yourself. Okay, so we can name it with the number, so this could be angle 5. We can name it with just the vertice, so that's just angle E. Or go in this order, so R, E, D. Or we can switch it around and go the other order. So we start over here, D, E, R. Okay, so the next questions are using a protractor, which I'm hoping that we already know how to do. So go ahead and pause it and try, and then I'll show you the answers, and then if you're still confused, we can talk about it in class. But I think we already know how to do it because you learned that a long time ago. Okay? So pause your video and do question 3. Okay, so here's what I got. There's different ways to do a couple of them, like depending on which way you look at it. Okay, so you just have to know, like, if you're starting on this side, we're going to use the outside numbers. But if we're starting on this side, we'd use the inside numbers. Okay, so circle any ones of those you didn't understand, and we'll talk about it in class. Okay, so on the next page, we talk about the things that we've talked about with segments. So the addition postulate and the bisector. So addition postulate means that the pieces of the angle added together equal the whole angle. So the orange plus yellow equals the whole thing, the blue. Okay, so same idea as the segment addition postulate, now it's just for angles. So the bisector thing, same idea as a midpoint, except for an angle it has to be more than a point. It has to be like a whole like line or segment or ray that splits our angle, and it makes them congruent. So there's those congruency marks. Sometimes they don't just have the arcs, they put little slashes on them. Okay, and again, more slashes means congruent to different angles, like I was telling you about before. So if OF is the angle bisector, then that means that these two angles are going to be congruent. So the two pieces combined would equal what that whole thing was. Okay, so let's practice some examples. So turn your page. Okay, so for question number 4, they give us some information and we're going to draw a picture. So it says find those measures if the measure of FGB is 105 and the measure of BGH is 54. H is on the interior of FGB. Okay, so if we draw FGB, it doesn't matter how big you make it, you just got to make sure you put the letters in the right order. So G has to be the vertex, FGB, or I put H, FGB. And H is on the interior of that. So H is going to be somewhere on the inside. So I'm going to plop H right there. So they told us that the measure of FGB, so that big angle, is 105. So from those two lines is going to make 105 degrees. The measure of BGH is 54 degrees. So now we're looking for what the measure of FGH is. So if we know the whole thing in one piece, then remember we use subtraction to find the other piece. Or you could write it as an equation and put like an x here. So x plus 54 equals 105. So I'm just going to write it as subtraction, though I like that better. So if we subtract, we get 51 degrees. So the measure of angle FGH is 51 degrees. Okay, so go ahead and pause and try example 5. Same or very similar to the one we just did. Okay. Okay, so for this one, if you look, we had both inside pieces, and they were asking you to find the outside, the whole thing. So this time we add. So the parts added together equal the whole. Okay? Awesome. So question number 6, angle addition postulate. So it says to find the value of x and the measure of each angle if VUT, so that means the whole thing is 175 degrees. So like I did on the other ones, I usually draw a giant big arc around it to show me that that's the whole thing. If you have a different way that you think might help you, then do it that way. I know maybe not everybody does it this way, but to me it helps me keep track of what everything is. Okay, so we know that the pieces added together equal the whole angle. Okay, so 17x minus 3 plus 17x plus 8 equals the whole thing of 175. So the two parts added together equal the whole thing. Okay, so combine like terms. So that'd be 34x plus 5 equals 175. Subtract 5. So 34x equals 170. Divide by 34, and we get that x is 5. Okay, so to define x and the value of each angle, so we've only done part of it. So now we have to plug it back in to find each angle. So the measure of angle VUJ would equal 17 times 5 plus, or JK minus 3. So if we plug that in, or if we do that, we get 82 degrees for this angle. So now the measure of angle JUT equals 17 times 5 plus 8. So that one's 93. So I plugged it back in to find that other angle, but if you do 175 minus 82, you'll get 93 as well. So either way, it's the same idea. Okay, so number 8. Let's take a look at that one. So this one says that DT bisects that angle. Okay, so remember, if it bisects, that means that those two angles are congruent. So now we have that these angles are congruent. So if things are congruent, then they're equal. So to find x, we just set everything equal. So 3x plus 36 equals 9x minus 14. And then we can just use inverse operations to solve for x. So I know I'm going to subtract this 3 from both sides, and that'll cancel here. Add 14 to cancel that. So I get 50 equals 6x. Divide by 6. So x equals 50 divided by 6, which doesn't divide, but I can reduce it by 2. So if I divide the top and bottom by 2, I get 25 over 3. Okay, so we need to find the value of each angle, so we'll plug it back in, okay? So I'm going to plug it in here first. So that would be 3 times 25 over 3 plus 6. So remember, if we're multiplying and the same numbers on the top and the bottom, they can cancel out. So this is just 25 plus 6, so 31 degrees. Okay? Okay, so that means that the measure of angle CDT, which is equal to the measure of angle ADT, equals 31 degrees. And if we want to find the measure of the whole thing, angle CDA, 31 times 2 is 62 degrees. Awesome. Okay, go ahead and pause and try this one. Okay, same idea as the one we just did. Okay, so here's what we got. We made those equal. So we ended up with x equaling 5. When we plugged it back in, each angle was 11 degrees. And so the whole thing was 22. Okay, so the last part is the constructions. So I'm going to show you it now, even though you might not have your compass, and then we'll go back over it in class. Well, actually, just kidding. I'll just show you in class because we're going to have to go back over it anyway. So you can leave those for now, and we'll go over it. If you have your compass and you want to try it, go ahead and follow the steps. But otherwise, we'll go over it in class. Werner out.